warm welcome to the premiere episode of the Many Mosaic. My name's Luna and I'm your host. And today I'm being joined by two incredible women, Adele Dolan and Dinah Grace. They're here to talk to us about their new campaign, #SomeoneIKnew. And this campaign is designed to highlight that the true threat of sexual assault comes from someone you know, not from people seeking asylum or trans people, as the media and some others may have you believe. Welcome, Adele, and welcome, Dinah. So, Adele and Dinah, do you want to just one of you take it in turns and just tell us a little bit about yourselves? Just speak to the audience and let us know a bit about yourself. Are you going first? Who's going first?
Thank you so much for having us on the Many Mosaic. It's really exciting to be here chatting to you and to be kickstarting your first episode. So my name's Dinah. My pronouns are she, her. I've been an activist in various spaces for a really long time. I started off with mental health campaigning because I suffer with OCD and anxiety and depression. And that's how I got my introduction to campaigning. And then I've been doing various things since then, and I've been working with various different groups. And then, I think more recently over the past couple of years, and seeing the rise of the far right and that kind of rhetoric and the hate and the racism and the transphobia that we've been seeing, and then which feels slightly more recently to me, but then people starting to use experiences of sexual violence to target minority and marginalised communities. It's not okay. And as a survivor myself of sexual assault at the hands of a family member, I felt called to create something that could platform women's voices, to use our experiences, those who are comfortable, willing and safe to share their experiences of sexual assault and domestic violence, because we know that the statistics are very clear, and it's in 85% of cases, according to Rape Crisis, our assailant is somebody that we already knew and is most likely to be a partner or an ex-partner. And then sexual assault crimes by demographic, they're entirely proportional by ethnicity. There's nothing to suggest that one particular community or race or religion is more responsible for committing sexual crimes than anybody else.
Oh, thank you so much, Dinah. And also, I want to say thank you for turning, what must have been a really painful experience for you, being assaulted by someone you knew, into something as positive as this. That's really brave. It takes great courage to do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Adele, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, hello, I'm Adele, also she, her. I haven't been campaigning and in the activist space for as long as Dinah has, but maybe the last, I think it's around 12 months now. It all started through UK-based group that was for feminists, that were all intersectional feminists. And yeah, the same thing, like the last few years, it's been there where I can see the rise of hatred and see the rise of misogynistic sort of rhetoric and racism and transphobia, and I'll be honest, it was driving me a bit insane. And I'm not a survivor of sexual assault, but I have survived relationships that were probably on the brink of domestic violence, and they were definitely coercive, and I've survived a lot of different abusive tactics within my life, and it was just driving me to the brink where I was like, I need to do something. I can't just sit here watching the news. I can't just sit and listen to the world going the way it's going without doing something. So that's how I got into sexual uprising. And then also from there, I had to go and do different events and speaking events and things like that. And that's where I met Dinah, and we started the Someone I Knew campaign. And yeah, it took off. That was about 5 months ago now, and it's just took off from there.
Yeah, and also I want to add that Adele is an absolute powerhouse, and it's been amazing to work with you. I'm so grateful.
Same for you, honestly. I don't know how either of us survive because we do too much and we don't have enough time to do what we're doing, but it's so worth it, and it's definitely something that both of us have said continuously, as much as it's a lot with the rest of everything else that you've got to do in life, and then doing this on top, it's definitely something that we want to do and want to make that positive change, and we want to try and educate people and things like that. So it's it's a positive outlet for us to be able to channel that anger that we have with the news that we're seeing and our experiences as well.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Adele. I think you're amazing, both of you. And I can tell, that you've really had a calling, really. This is not ordinary work. I know it isn't ordinary work. It comes with an awful lot of barriers, a lot of problems. It's also not always the safest work to do. People assume that you'd just be safe speaking out, but you're not always. So I really want to honour both of your bravery for heeding that call and actually carrying on and continuing irrespective of those things, because so many people see these things in the world, and instead of actually responding in some positive way and bringing their light and just doing, even if it's just a very small bit, because we can all do a tiny amount, even in the worst circumstances, many people just turn away and maybe go and get drunk, or there's a vast amount of things we can do to distract ourselves on this wonderful planet, and many people do that. So I just really wanted to take a moment to honour the fact that you haven't done that. You didn't turn away, even though you've both had painful experiences in your life, and you could have even just been very triggered by what you were seeing in the world. And instead, you've gone and done something positive about it. So I really want to just take a moment to say how brave you both are for that.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for saying it's like the people who've come forward as well to share their stories has just been amazing. It's like we've had so many people, and they're just the sheer bravery to share what they've been through is immense, and it's a lovely feeling because it feels like it's the campaign's co-owned. It's obviously we're sat there behind our laptops doing all the typey, but then there's like other people sat behind their laptops doing all the typey and just being so brave and courageous and sharing their stories and experiences, like either verbally or sending us like written submissions and stuff that we publish on the page. So yeah, it's been like pretty awe-inspiring, to be fair.
Yeah, the bravery of some of the people that have sent stories through is unreal. Like I completely understand why they'd want to send it to us, and where it's for them to share it anonymously is empowering, because some of them are not in safe situations, or they've not been able to get the justice that they deserve. So if they post it on their own accounts or in their own social medias, they'd probably get a lot of hate. And for us to be able to share that for people, it's great. It's really inspiring, and it's really inspiring that they're brave enough to share this with complete strangers. Really, we don't know any of these people. They come to us. We know the social media tags. That's it. They don't tell us any personal details aside from what they're sharing in the story, because they obviously anonymise a lot of it, and it's incredible. They don't know who we are, and it's honouring that they can trust us with that, and that we're able to share that for them and make them feel more empowered too.
Oh, that's so special that they can be vulnerable with you and can trust you. And you're both special for them to be able to do that, because I'm sure that they can sense that. Do you want to just tell the audience a bit about the campaign itself, what it actually is, so they know what people are sending you and why, and what you're letting people do is find their voice. But can you just explain a bit more about that?
You'd think I'd be used to summarizing it by now, but every time I try to summarize it, like whether it's a friend that is asking me, what are you doing? Like I had a friend that came around today, and then she was like, what are you doing? So I was on my laptop, and I was like, oh my God, how do I explain it? So the Someone I Knew campaign is a grassroots campaign completely. We're not paid. The misconception for some reason is the idea that we get paid for doing this. We don't get a penny. We do this just because we care a lot, and it's led entirely by volunteers, and it is essentially the original concept, which still holds true, but it's evolved a little bit since then. But the original concept was to create a hashtag similar to the Me Too movement, which is specifically for women to use to platform their stories of sexual violence at the hands of someone they knew. As we know, in most cases, it is perpetrated by a family member or a partner or an ex-partner or a friend. So the long-term goal is to create a viral moment once we've grown our followers on various platforms. So we're in the process of developing a long-term social media strategy to make that happen, because I think you have to reach a certain number of hashtag shares in order to be officially viral and have that moment, as a way of then weaving into the more overarching goal that informs everything that we do in the campaign, which is disrupting the narrative, changing the narrative from a false one into a true one that identifies the real culprits of harm against women, which is the patriarchy, and not just the patriarchy, but also capitalism, systems of power at large. And yeah, it's grown beyond that, and we've got a WhatsApp community, and we will comment on like relevant news stories on Instagram. We're at the moment looking at maybe developing some educational materials to go out that's going to also like hopefully have a wider impact, because we want to try and go beyond like the circles that already think the same as we do, because it's like important to talk within those circles, and that's how we grow and build a follower base. And but then it's also really important to like stem beyond that and then reach like society who maybe are on the fence, or people in society who are maybe on the fence, or people who actually disagree, and maybe we can like win them round and help them understand that it is patriarchy that is the problem, and not refugees and not trans people.
Yeah, exactly that. So initially we met in a conference, and there was 3 of us, and we were chatting, and the sort of questions that we were talking about was, how do we make it more accessible? How do we make it more intersectional? How do we make it more viral, not viral, but like outreach? How do we reach more people that are not involved in activism, or that don't follow politics and things like that? So how do we get that message out there? And one of the biggest tools that we can have, as much as it is detrimental sometimes, but it can also be beneficial, is social media. So it was building a social media campaign to try and get information out to people that might not see it on their normal news feeds, and they might not see it in their normal algorithms. And that's where it originated from, to say that the problem doesn't lie with migrants and refugees or trans people. It lies with the patriarchy as a whole, and it doesn't matter people's race or creed or anything like that. People that are assaulting women, generally men, like overall. So that's the narrative, and we need to change the shame. Like, the shame has to change sides, and it's empowering people to, like we said earlier, with people sharing the stories is one part of the campaign, is that they can use the hashtag, or they can send us anonymized stories. We can share them for them using that hashtag, which is empowering them to share that story and be emboldened by sharing it, not be shamed into silence, and not be fearful of speaking their truth. And that's one step in the journey of that. And then, as well as that, we've got other things that we post news stories, we post different bits calling different politicians out quite a lot of the time, little things about mental health and different awareness days as well. And we're doing a lot of it online, but we're doing stuff where in the background, where we're looking at education campaigns, linking up with the different unions and charities, that we can try and help push this sort of educational material into the right places, that sort of thing. So they're all strategies that we're looking at and we're working on, and it's still very new. It's been like 4 months, so a lot of it was building the base first, and building the social medias first, and then building the team, which we're just about getting there now, aren't we? We've had a little team for a little while, and now we're getting a bit of a bigger team. It's a bit crazy all of a sudden, and so that's all happening. And so now we can really start to focus on the long term and the strategy, and what can we do, and who can we start to collaborate with and incorporate into this. So
yeah, it's been nice how it's grown as well, because I go into things having these massive ideas and like wanting to fly before I can even crawl. And so this process that we've gone through has been so beautiful, because it's really felt like I have had time to breathe throughout all of it. And like I do feel like I'm flying by the seat of my pants most of the time, because I don't know, I feel like I've been campaigning for a really long time, but I don't feel like it ever gets particularly easier, because society changes. As much as you think you figured it out, something new will happen, or people will respond in a different way, or I don't even know if anyone's got to the bottom of like how exactly, because I did sociology in uni and we did a lot about social movements and stuff, and because I really wanted to know if you could manufacture a social movement, and it turns out you can't really. You can help it along if the mood is there, but you can't be like, we're doing this. But I don't think anyone's really fully got to the bottom of what causes a social movement, or what causes like a flux in society or whatever. But whatever it is that makes it happen, I feel like we're seeing that at the moment. And I feel like we've struck while the iron is hot, in a sense, where like things are just so bad at the moment that like whether you're on the left or whether you're on the right, which feels really reductive to even say it in those terms, because it's, are you empathetic or you're not empathetic? But whether you're on the left or whether you're on the right, like people are so like entrenched in their viewpoints right now, and they're so like more vocal and more militant about it as well, in a way that I don't think they have been before. So that's, I think, the like circumstances that society finds itself in at the moment in the UK has influenced the way that the campaign has like naturally grown and ebbed and flowed.
Yeah, and some of the things that have naturally changed as well. Like at first it was just let's make a viral moment. Obviously, with blinkers on and not really overly aware of probably what we were getting into, not what we were getting into, but how to do it. And then as we've got into it, it's also naturally grown in the sense of, okay, we can't really do a viral campaign overnight. That's understandable. We knew that probably wasn't ever going to be achieved anyway from the start, but the more we got into it, the more that obviously reality sunk in. And then it was case, okay, but what can we do? What little changes? And if we reach one person, then that's one person that could change their mind. And that one person might speak to the friends and the family. And that's all it takes to start a chain reaction. So if we reach one person, then it's better than reaching nobody at all, basically.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how it's growing. I'm so happy that you've got more team players and things like that helping out. Can we just speak a little bit? Because I know, Dinah, you mentioned from falsehood to truth, and Adele, you touched on that as well. And then you were saying maybe it would get somebody to change their mind. Can you speak to the type of person you want to change their mind, why you want them to change their mind, and what you would like them to change their mind to? Can you just speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so sorry, I'll just jump in there. So there's a lot of people that are out there that probably will never change their minds. And they're very entrenched in their thoughts, like Dinah said. And I think there's a lot of people that are very strong and with the views. And like you said, we don't really know what changes society and the movements within it. But I think there's a lot of factoring things that come into play, and social media, the lack of community at the minute, the lack of mental health support, the lack of money. To be blunt, like everyone's feeling this constraints of money at the minute, the cost of living, and all of them things all feed into the way that people think because their experiences feed into that. And then you've got on top of all of that people who have got a big voice because they've got social media, they're a politician, they've got the news, things like that. They're public figures that are then utilising how people are currently feeling to warp that narrative and to make them believe that the reason that they're so downtrodden at the minute because they're lonely, because they've got no money, or whatever it might be, it's because of people coming to the UK, refugees coming to the UK, or it's because trans people are using women's bathrooms. And obviously that is not the truth. Like, data does not support that narrative whatsoever. And like, we're big on knowing our facts and looking into data. So that was the thing that stuck out more than anything when we started everything, was this is not the truth, and we want to fight that because it's not the truth. Yes, there will be a lot of people that are really entrenched in their views, and we might not reach everybody, and that's gonna happen, but there might be a lot of people in that middle ground that are just, they don't know which way to go, they don't know which politics to follow, they don't know which social media to look at, they don't know what's right and what's wrong. They're very unsure because one minute they're seeing social media where it's telling them that the statistics about, violence against women, and then the next minute they're seeing a social media or a news story about Andrew Tate, and what he's saying makes sense, but then also what that's saying makes sense, so they don't know. And they're the sort of people that I think are important to not to target, and we don't target anyone, we're just going to share what we share and share the truth and push the truth out there as much as we can. But if there is people that are on that middle fence that are maybe not sure what to believe, they're the sort of people that it would be great if they could start seeing the actual facts being presented in some sort of way that's digestible for them and that's easy for them to understand. Like, none of the things that we tend to share are overly complicated or wordy or full of jargon or anything like that. I'm not that sort of person. Dinah will tell you that I'm terrible at writing things. I just don't do grammar very well. But I don't do big words either because I work in technology as my day job, and I know what it's like to train technology out, and I know how complicated it can be just when you've got a little bit of jargon. So if you can imagine, that's just technology that we've been using for over 40 years now in society, like modern society, day-to-day use, politics is going to be 10 times worse, and data and statistics are going to be 10 times worse for people to understand. So if we can get it across to people that it's in a digestible way, and it gets to those people that are just not entirely sure what the truth is anymore because they hear so many different viewpoints all the time, they're the sort of people that then might shift the narrative, because we have a mass amount of people on the same side as us that are in the same thought patterns as us, and they've got the like-minded, but then there's a mass amount of people on the complete opposite end of the scale too, and there's that middle ground of people that are just not, oh, I won't listen. Like you say, there's people that are just completely ignoring the way the world's going because they're just, it's not their problem, it doesn't affect them personally. They just want to go out and enjoy themselves with their friends. They just want to go and drown the sorrows somewhere. They don't like the way that life's going. They think that, yeah, it's horrible the way the economy is and that they are asking, but it's not because of anything they're doing and they just have to work a bit harder, or it's not because of anything particularly, and they don't want to listen and they just want to ignore the news. But they might be on Instagram, they might be on TikTok, they might be on all the different platforms, and they might just be generally scrolling and see something, go, wait a minute, actually I didn't know that information, that's interesting. And they're the sort of the people that we want all the people that are like-minded to read it too, because that's who will more than likely interact with things. But then there's a lot of people in that middle ground that it'd be great if they could actually get the information in a digestible way.
Yeah, okay. So I'm hearing that it's important that we wake people up to the truth. But could you tell me why it's important that people know the truth? What difference does that make in the world? If people know the truth, what are you hoping for from that?
I think like Adele summarized it really well, and it's exactly like the same thing that I was going to say, but articulate it so much better than I would have been able to. And like it is so manipulative that politicians and like media and just the powerful figures in general are like trying to redirect frustration and anger from where it rightly sits with them, because they're making all the decisions, they're choosing where the money goes and what services get money and funding, and if they get money and funding. And it's like, I think it's a fine balance, because I think it's also really important to recognize that like you can't capitalize on something that isn't already there. And I do think there's a lot of racism that exists within society, and like facing that head on and being like, you can't stir up the waters if the kind of mud isn't already there to stir up. That was a weird analogy, but we'll go with it. So yeah, it's a fine balance between calling people out, but then also acknowledging, like Adele said, the frustrations and the like. It's just shit at the moment. It's like we've basically got no NHS. The NHS that we do have, half of it's privatized. Like you can't get mental health treatment for love nor money. You can't like afford food, you can't afford shelter. If you have got shelter, like you don't know if you're going to have it next week. It's crazy. Like people can't afford to have kids, and then they're getting shouted at because if you can't afford to have kids, you shouldn't have kids. It's what, so the whole human population is just going to die because literally no one could afford to have kids. It's nonsense. I wanted to say bullshit actually, but and then I remember that we could swear. I said nonsense. I'm going to say bullshit instead. But yeah, it's important because I think that we need, our only hope of combating these things is uniting as a working class. And we can only do that if we stop fighting each other, because refugee communities are our working class communities, trans communities are our communities, migrant communities are our communities. So why are we fighting each other? People who are worse off than us, because they have been marginalised by society. And if we can channel that collective frustration and rage and start redirecting it up to systems of power, whether that be through strike action or protests or just not feeding machines like the algorithms and the stuff that keep us subservient, then like we've won, haven't we? Because there's so many more, far more of us than there are of them. So I think it's like 50 what was I looking at recently? 50 of the richest families in the UK own 50% of UK wealth. So it's, can you imagine if like we flipped it and actually redirected the power to ourselves? Like it would be incredible. So
yeah, not only that, it's the more that these false narratives continue to get pushed, the more people that believe them, and then people that are pushing them get more power. And if they get more power, then human rights start to get stripped. And if they're targeting marginalised communities, once that marginalised community is gone, they'll find somebody else to target. So it doesn't just start with one and stop. It starts with one and then it's a continuum until they have the world that they think is ideal. And the world that they think ideal is not one that's full of community and one that's full of culture and one that's full of difference and equality. And it's what they think is complete opposite of that, probably. I don't know. I'm not in their heads. But that's my assumption from the narratives that they're pushing. And some of them might not even ever believe that. They just do it because they're getting paid by billionaires to push this narrative. And Nigel Farage, for example, his wife is not from the UK. His children have both got foreign passports. He's got businesses in offshore accounts. So he can't be that angry at people that are not from the UK, realistically, in his core. However, money speaks, and therefore he will target the minority communities because he's getting paid to do. I'm not saying that he's a good guy by any means, but what is on paper doesn't make sense. And if they keep pushing these narratives and more people buy into it, one day these people that bought into it 10 years before, we sat there without a house or without human rights or without being able to speak in the streets or having to wear a uniform, and they won't understand where this came from, what started this butterfly effect of now I'm wearing a grey uniform every single day and I can't speak my own truth. And it'll be the start of this basically is the start of, if it continues down that trajectory, it's going to lead to a lot of rights being restricted, not just for marginalised communities, for everybody. And it starts with marginalised communities. And if you hurt them, you hurt us all eventually. Like, we fight for their rights because they deserve their rights as humans. Like, we're all human, and empathy is key and humanity is key. But then also on the back of that, we also fight for their rights because it doesn't just affect them. If you look at Afghanistan, for example, at the minute, the women are walking around with full head covering and covering the mouths, covering their eyes. They're not allowed to look at each other. They're not allowed to speak. They're not allowed education. They're not allowed to work. That didn't just happen overnight. That started as a trickle effect. And then they targeted the women, but there'll be other people that got targeted as well before that. And that's more than 50% of that population. Like, women make up 51% of the population in the UK. Could you imagine if we were all completely silenced? But it doesn't, we're already oppressed, but we're not. We face it at a different level to those that are more marginalised than us. And they get more rights stripped than we do every single day.
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you. You've just hit on some really key and very important things there. I think people don't realise how much they are being coerced, controlled, and manipulated by mega rich people who don't have any of our best interests at heart, that have their own agenda, that want to remain in power and control over all of us, and they will go to any lengths to do it. I think people don't even realise that the news, majority of the news, is completely fabricated. It's not true. Even when you see a video or there's actors on the news pretending to be a person that's been through something. And it's the same with social media, isn't it? And getting worse, because if you're very rich, you can afford chatbots, deep fakes, things like that. I don't think people are realising that that is actually what goes on. So I think what I'm getting here is that you're almost redirecting this darkness to the light, so that this darkness and these untruths can be in the light of truth. And from there, we can all find our power together and come together, because there's many of us and few of them.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just us. Like, we're not just two people that are fighting the world by ourselves. There's many people, and there's a lot of different Instagram people and creators and charities and things like that that are all doing very similar things too. And I think the more of us that do it, the better it gets, and the more involved we can get with different things, the better it gets as well, because it's all part of the media that we're going to digest. It's all part of the media that people are going to consume. So if we can push that and share, even just sharing other people's posts and pushing their posts and making them go more viral, again, reaches more people. Sorry
If I go quiet, by the way, it's because I've had an idea from the conversation and I'm furiously scribbling it down. I think Adele, you said something that made me think of something we can do next, as if we need another thing.
I apologise, the kitten fell down the back of my chair.
Oh
Oh, kittens are welcome. Cats are welcome. Oh, so cute. Oh, yeah. I think what I'm hearing as well is what I really like about this is that because there is so much false information being fed into people's feeds, it's called a feed for a reason. You're being fed what somebody wants you to be fed. If we can get real stories and the actual truth from genuine humans in the way that you're asking people to share it, then I think that's so important because people will be able to sense that it's true. We all have our intuition, our gut instinct. We can become more discerning about what we see online, see in news outlets, see in the media. And this will be real, genuine humans who have been sexually assaulted saying it was someone I knew.
Yeah.
So if there's somebody listening to this thinking, I fit that criteria, I've been sexually assaulted by someone I knew, how can they help this campaign? What can they do? Are you asking them just to post on their own social media? Do you want them to send something to you? What kind of avenues have they got open to them as part of this campaign?
I suppose the first thing is, I would say, if I was talking to somebody who was a survivor and was considering sharing their story, I would say, are you okay, first of all? Have you got yourself in a place where you're accessing or have at least sought out organisations that can help you, and therapy and counselling and that sort of thing? I know it's really difficult at the moment. We try to share as many support resources as we can because I know that help isn't always available in the NHS and through social services. It's just not. So yeah, make sure you're the priority ultimately before anything or anybody else. If you are in a place where you're like safe and comfortable to share your story, and we'll ask you that as well before you do, if you want us to share your story on your behalf or go through that, we've developed like a set of safety guidelines and a disclaimer that everybody has to sign to keep them safe, keep us safe, and keep our audience, is that the right word, or whoever's viewing our content safe. And so you can either use the hashtag yourself, in which case go forth and share your story however you would like to. We recommend reading our guidelines, but it's your platform and we don't have any say over that whatsoever. We can also share your story anonymously on our own platforms. So if you send it to us either by email or by message, then we'll reach out. You can either send us your story straight off the bat, or you can talk to us and say, hey, I'm thinking about sharing my story. Can I talk to you about it? And then one of us will have a chat with you. We can have a video call or chat via Instagram or another platform if that's easier. And then we will send, if the person is then happy to share their story. Sorry, this is so long-winded. But if the person's happy to share their story, we'll send them the guidelines and the disclaimer. And that disclaimer must be signed before a story goes out on any of our platforms. And it will be automatically anonymous unless the sharer says that they would like to use their first name, and obviously we wouldn't use last names full stop.
We have a discussion as well with them, don't we, about that, of how anonymous do you want it to be? Do you want us to just share your first name? Do you want us to share your initial? Do you want a completely different name? Like we've had a couple where we've used like an item that references them, or some sort of natural occurrence that references them, that could sound like a name, but it's not a name in some cases. And it'll be something that they feel represents them as well, but wouldn't be signified and as them. But we'll have that discussion. Like it's not just a case of you'll send it in and we'll post it. It'll be with people, do you know what I mean? We'll talk to you, we'll make sure you're safe. The disclaimer sounds really scary, but it is just confirming, reiterating that where the post might be sent, who could view it, if there's any comments or anything like that, we'll try and combat them. We're not going to know who could comment. It's a public platform. Things like we're not licensed therapists or legal representatives, so we need to be outline that from the off and tell people that from the off, because we're not. And we can give you support references and tell you where to go, but if that's your decision. All we can do is advocate and tell you what is available. So little things like that, where we're all humans and we want to make sure people are as safe as they can be. So that's the disclaimers there for protecting everybody. It's not just for us to protect ourselves, it's for people that are sharing the stories to protect them as well, to make sure that they're in that position to do. And yeah, we'll have a conversation. We'll make sure that everything is chatted about and discussed, and everybody's happy with the end result before it actually gets posted. If they want us to post it for them on their behalf, if they want to post it on their own socials, yeah, we again recommend reading the guidelines, like Dinah said, but it's then their own social. They can share what they want on that social and just use a hashtag or tag us in them as well.
Yeah, I shared it, and I've got a very long history of rape from people I know or knew. I don't know them now, but did know. And so I just kept mine very generic. I didn't go into the full detail, although my story's quite public anyway, but I didn't go into the details. So if somebody's listening to this and thinking, oh, I don't know what to write, I literally just wrote something like I knew all the men who raped me. I was raped by someone I knew. And I just kept it really generic and simple like that. So that's an option as well, isn't it, for people to keep it quite generic and
yeah.
Which is it's so powerful in and of itself, because it's such a taboo subject. Like, most people aren't even able to say that. They're not even able to articulate what's happened to them. So yeah, thank you for sharing your story and your bravery next. It's not easy. I still clam up every time I say what's happened to me, and I've said it so many times now, and I've shared it so many times, and I still can never just come out and say it. There's always a pause or a look away or whatever. Yeah, and also another thing to add is we won't share anything that's like explicit or graphic, just because there are some really awful, horrific people out there who will seek gratification from listening to survivor stories like that, which is disgusting and should not.
And it's triggering as well for people.
And it's triggering for people, yeah. So we don't have any. If we get a story that's got some graphic or explicit detail, we will gently edit it out and then work with the person who shared the story to make sure they're happy with the edits, and then before we share it.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of like you say, a lot of the short stories can be very generic, and we've had people literally just say, it was my ex-partner, or it was my family member, or they'll say, this is what happened by this person, but it'll be very generic. I was this age, I was raped by this person. Like, that's it, like point blank. But then we get some that share a lot more detail, especially if there's certain details that need to be shared. And some of them, all of the stories are quite explicit, and in that sense, if it's not a nice subject, but it's the way that we've been taught is to be shameful and silent about it, and actually no, it's your story, it's your story to share. So they will have some where have got explicit content, but it'll just be the ones where it's really like graphic, like detailed, when we might say, okay, we're just going to generalize this a little bit more so it's not as graphic for people, but we won't take away the content of anything whatsoever. We'll just make sure it's not something that people could be triggered by, or something that the subject in general is triggering, and we get that, but there'll be certain things that are worse for people than others.
Yeah, I guess it's like, because by nature it is explicit in and of itself, especially if I was 12 years old, my dad did what he did to me. So even just me saying that, by its very nature, that is explicit content, isn't it? But I wouldn't, if their story was being shared that was like describing in detail what someone did, for example, and like do you know what I mean? It's like going into that explicit detail that could potentially either be triggering, or somebody could gain some sort of horrific, depraved pleasure from it. It's awful to even say that, and we even have to consider that, but it is,
people have a lot of trauma, and sometimes that trauma manifests itself in really damaging ways. And I think we were saying earlier, mental health systems are just shocking in the UK, and they're probably worse in other countries, or the same. Some are fantastic, obviously, but there's quite a lot of countries that say the same thing. So the way that people manifest things sometimes isn't always the best, and it does mean it justifying their actions at all. Sometimes if the people like that have depraved views and take satisfaction of other people's pain, generally I'm not justifying what they're doing, but I can understand that most of these things come from a place of mental health That doesn't mean that they aren't capable of making the right choices, though, does it? Mental health doesn't stop you from knowing right from wrong.
No, because my mental health isn't very good because of what's happened to me. But I don't go out and abuse people. And I think that is a good message that you've given there, because yes, it might be a contributing factor, but it's not the reason, because people make a conscious choice to do what they don't they?
100%. 100%. Yeah, exactly. Like, we see it all the time. Like we've said this a few times, haven't we? Like, you see it all the time where you'll see true crime documentaries or shows or whatever else it might be, and they always go into the inner psyche of the criminal, and it's always that they had a really bad childhood and they had a mother that didn't love them and all these other things, and the likes of Ted Bundy and whatever else. Yeah, they are all contributing factors that change and shape the way that you behave. But obviously there's still a choice, and there's still something at the end of the day that makes you make that choice, and I don't think anyone will ever know the reasons behind it. Obviously, a lot of the time it's control, a lot of the time it's the need for some sort of exerting some sort of control over people, but that's still a choice, and that's still a choice that person's decided to make. Because I know a lot of people that have had really terrible lives, and they've been through the absolute war with everything thrown at them, and the mental health is probably down the toilet, but they wouldn't go out and hurt somebody. The most they probably do is have a bit of a retaliative way of speaking sometimes and hurt people with words, but that's not going out and physically hurting somebody, is it? So it's always a choice.
Yeah. It's been a really weird journey with how I view my dad, because I think for the longest time I was just really angry, like that all-consuming like rage. I was just so angry at him, at everybody, at the world, at my mum for letting it happen. And then as I got better within myself, I used to have people saying when people say you need to forgive them in order to have peace for you, and you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for, no, you're not doing it for them, you're doing it for yourself. And I was like, what? And I still don't agree with that, because I think like you can move past something without forgiving somebody. And I think some things shouldn't be forgiven and don't deserve to be forgiven, as long as you can find a way of moving forward yourself and making peace with what happened. But as I have gotten better within myself and I've developed better, what's the word, self-esteem, can't think of the phrase then, and more confidence within myself, and I'm happier and I've got really good friends, and yeah, in a pretty good place. And I still have my ups and downs, and that's never going to go away. I still like have episodes of suicidal ideation, and I probably will do for the rest of my life. But it's not like I'm able to still live with joy and happiness, and despite everything. And it's almost the bad stuff never completely goes away, but you can still be happy and grow around it. And a really long-winded way, circling back to what I wanted to say, was that I understand more why my dad was the way that he is, and because I've had to, because if I want to fix these things that I'm seeing in the world, and saying that like I always do this, and feel like I have to fix the entire world in a day. It's just gonna be.
Imagine if you could do that.
I know. This is what I do though. I'm like, I wake up in the morning, I've got to fix everything. It's all dependent on me, which is ridiculous. But like, if we want to work and we want to campaign to try to make a difference and to stop people from getting hurt, like, we have to understand why people do it and what leads to those things. And looking back at my dad, there was no excuse whatsoever for what he did, and there never will be, not in any dimension, in any dimension or any universe. But like, he grew up in really abject poverty, really bad, like no heating, no food, etc., etc. He was deeply insecure, like the most insecure person I've ever met in my entire life. And like, his only recourse for that as he got older was to just try to exert dominance and control over other people, because that was the only way that he knew that he could feel better. Obviously the patriarchy massively impacted him as well. I grew up in the 70s when it was like, it's bad now, but it was bad then. Like, our bosses were still grabbing our butts and stuff in the 70s. It's like he didn't have any resources or coping mechanisms, definitely wouldn't have had access to therapy, even if he had wanted to, which he would never have sought therapy. And so it's like, I can still hold all of these things as reasons and like things that we need to Because I think it's not good enough to tell somebody like, you're wrong, you need to be an ally, you need to call your friends out. Yes, all of those things are important, but then you have to also, to a degree, meet these people where they're at in terms of, yes, I can see you're lonely. Like suicide is the biggest killer of men under 40 or 45, I think. It's shit. Like men don't have friends. They don't know how to form social bonds and form friendships, which I can't even imagine because I wouldn't be okay if I didn't have my friends.
No, that's the same.
So yeah, it's like acknowledging all of these things as well, and also validating like positive masculinity as well, because I think men struggle to find their role in society now, and they don't, which is nonsense. And I'm laughing because obviously like we live and breathe this, so we understand it, don't we? We're like, how can feminism isn't obviously about taking power away from men, like clearly, but they don't understand, like a lot of men don't understand that. And so it's okay to be a man, it's okay to embrace positive masculinity, it's okay to want to be like a provider and be like that sort of, I don't want to say like that stoic, because stoicism also affects our ability to bond with other people, but there are aspects of masculinity that are like cool.
Yeah, of course there is. Yeah, of course. And if you like what you're saying there, if you look at like these other countries in Europe that have a lot less rates of all of the things, like sexual violence, domestic abuse, everything, and women are still oppressed, but they're not, it's not ideal in any country, but there is countries in Europe where crime rates are significantly lower, and they're also countries that you can see the systems better, the mental health systems better, they've got funded healthcare, they've got living wages, they've got cost of living for groceries isn't going to bankrupt them, and poverty in general isn't something that's as terrible because they have a bit better quality of life, and therefore there's a lot of men that don't need to be insecure because they feel open enough to talk to people. They've got mental health services, and then there's less crime rates because of it. And yeah, it's not ever gonna, one day, hopefully in my lifetime, it will be to the point where it is an ideal world where this is very few and far between. At least it's not something that we're still campaigning for. It's not something that we're still going, women are disproportionately murdered by men. But if the systems are there, you can see the impact that they have, because there's less need for people and insecurities and financial gain and reasons to. Insecurities can be massive things, like from not being able to provide, or feminism's developed so much in the last 50 years that men are now going, oh wait, but they don't need me to do that job anymore because the entire office is filled with women, and there's not as many manly jobs anymore, or whatever it might be. And that's not the case, because we've learned to adapt to be around men, but men just don't seem to have learned to adapt to let people in and give that space and understand how. And we're saying men as a generic, not as all men, but as a generic, the male population in that sense. It's like Dinah was saying, it's like they feel lost and therefore they're more insecure, but there's so many ways that they could be men still and feel masculine still and do manly jobs still without them having to take up space and affect the rights of others.
Yeah, I love that. That's so wise from both of you there. And I know that you were speaking earlier about how all of these different problems feed in, don't they? It's not just one thing, it's all these different problems form layers, don't they, that affect everybody, because they put everybody into survival mode, don't they? Especially cost of living, because people feel like, I'm going to be made homeless, I can't afford to eat, I'm freezing, whatever it may be. That puts you immediately into survival mode. And again, I think we can circle back around to these very rich people in the world that actually want us to be in survival mode like that, and they want to be on the top.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's not just poverty that causes things like this. It obviously has a massive contributing factor, but we know that there's like rich people that just, it's like law doesn't apply to them sometimes. And it's Seb Lowe, isn't it, that sings that song, Terms and Conditions? And if you actually listen to
Terms and Conditions, living in the UK.
But yeah, exactly, the lyrics are spot on. There's so many people that are in power. Look what happened with Prince Andrew, for example, and the Epstein files, for example. All these people in power that are getting away with things like rape and sexual violence and murder, and yeah, the laws don't apply to them. But then it's not because they are rich that, you know, poverty isn't just the contributing factor. The other contributing factor is insecurity and this idea of what it's to be a man, and that man box and things like that. And I don't know if, I've not really spoke to Dinah about it yet, but there was a survey done by Days recently as well on this, and one in three men in the UK think that feminism's gone too far, and then I think it was something like over 33% of men in the UK think that gay men are not real men. And this is all like contributing ideologies that are, what's the man box? What is that box that is a man? And then anything outside of that box is not a man enough. And I'm like, what? That's crazy. Because I wouldn't ever think that about being a woman. I wouldn't like wear jeans and a backwards cap and be like, oh, I'm not womanly enough. But who cares? It's clothing. Or I wouldn't date a girl and be like, oh, I'm not a woman enough anymore. Who cares? It's your own sexuality. Like, no, and women are very much like that. We don't care about what you do. We wouldn't label it something. Like, some people will, obviously, regardless of gender, but as a woman, and like in my experience and the women in my life, if you do something, they wouldn't ever be like, oh, that's a bit of a manly thing to do. That's a bit masculine. But for some reason, on the opposite end of the spectrum, people do that with men a lot, and it's weird. And it's because it's not, nothing should be categorized as a gender or feminism or masculine.
Yeah, I was talking to my friend about this, and he made a very good but very depressing point about why women I don't know what to say, it's just really depressing. But it's acceptable for a woman to dress as a man or be a tomboy, or to be a trans woman. So if you're a trans man, basically he was saying that he still gets a lot of discrimination, don't get me wrong, that's not an issue if you're a trans man, because it is, but he doesn't get as much discrimination as his trans women sisters, because it's more in the eyes of somebody who is transphobic, it's more acceptable for a woman to be dressing as a man, because a man is seen as the divine, like the
superior, aren't they?
What's the word? Yeah, the superior, the like default human being. So this, yes, you should be more masculine. Oh, that's great. Woo! But then if it's the other way around, that is the most deeply offensive thing that a man can do, is to reject his masculinity and then start identifying as a woman. So it's so deeply pervasive in our society in ways that like we probably wouldn't. I'd never occurred to me until he made that point. So
yeah, well, it's the same narrative of like, men don't actually like women, because everything they're ever taught from a young age is, don't cry, it's like girls, don't show your emotions like a girl, don't wear something like a dress because that's what girls do. Anything that is like slightly feminine, they get discouraged from. So then actually they grow up, and again, I say men as a generic term, it's not all men, we know that statistically it's not, but if over 50% of them think that, for example, that should be able to track their partners and know where they are at all times, how do they like women? Because that's not liking somebody at all, is it? And that's actually wanting to control somebody, and that's what they've been taught, and that's what they think is okay. And yeah, it's mental to think that way, because everybody's human. Like that, at the be all and end all, we're just humans. It doesn't matter.
yeah, it's like the idea of the default man in society, isn't it? It's like even medical records, I think they still do refer to the default man, and anything else is like it's an other, it's a deviation from the norm. And it's just it's like they're happy for us to have our little rights, as long as it's in their box, and it's so ingrained that we don't even realize how patriarchal our society. I'm still realizing things every single day that never even occurred to me. It's like, oh shit, that's sexist. And sometimes it'll be someone else pointing it out to me, and I'm like, oh yeah. But it's like as long as they're happy to give us certain rights and freedoms, as long as it doesn't truly impact their position of dominance over us. And like, I understand why it's hard for them to understand and see that, because it's hard for me to understand and see that. And I'm a woman, as a woman who experiences these sort of microaggressions every single day. So I can see why they wouldn't, if it's not even affecting them. Like, they're quite happy with the status quo, and why would you challenge that, especially not when you're going through all your own difficulties existing as a man in the world, or anybody in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's in order to not be racist, we need to decenter whiteness.
It's
Yeah.
all very interlinked, yeah. And it
Yeah.
all stems from like colonialism, realistically. Like the white person and the white man didn't exist until then. And then it was the white man who was controlling the women as well. And it wasn't just, it became this sort of, it was like godlike complex, isn't it? Where that is the desire. This man here up on this pedestal is now God, and that is what everyone's striving to achieve. And why? Because we've seen matriarchal systems, governments with a woman at the head, or a lot of women in the government, have a lot more success. Australia has had a lot more success in the recent history than a lot of other countries that are ruled by men. I think, is it Denmark that's ruled by a woman at the minute? I can remember, I'm rubbish with geography. And but one of, like a Nordic country that's also ruled by women, and I think there's more than one. I think there's a couple that are ruled by women, and they're extremely successful. The crime rates are really low. The cost of living is decent. The living wage is good. People are happy. People are healthy. People are dying less, and it's proven. And a lot of this is capitalism and colonialism that all then stems into patriarchy and racism, transphobia, and it's all linked, and it's all down to people that want to push a capitalist and colonialist society still.
It's like the process of othering. It was a long time ago that I did my sociology degree now, but we did, I think it was a certain module where we were looking at how interlinked it is. Black women especially are racialized in the sense of not only are they a Black woman, which they are subject to so many oppressions and so many like injustices at the hands of systemic inequality and a fundamentally racist system, but then also the feminine is seen as another as well, and that's another sort of like attribute or state of being that is seen as less than, and not doing it any justice in the way that I'm explaining
No,
this.
I could, yeah.
It's so long ago that I did it.
No, we
But
get what you mean, don't worry.
yeah, it's like the way that we get away with these things is by othering other people, othering other people, or othering certain groups of people. And it's like when people are scapegoating refugees, for example, they're able to do that because we've arrived at a place in society where we don't see them as people anymore. Like they've been so successfully othered that people are able to say anything they want about them because they're less than human. They're seen as less than human. And that's a really scary place to be in. But I think, I don't know, I wonder sometimes, like in terms of, I'm doing some local campaigning against reform at the moment as well. And it's really bad around here, like it is everywhere else. But I feel like maybe a route to go down would be to like just try to build some empathy back in like my community, and be saying to people, do you realize that these are human beings you're talking about? You're laughing at them. You're laughing at people falling off a boat and drowning in the sea. That's funny. It's insane. And I'm like, these people are human beings with like real stories. They're fleeing like persecution and violence. Like, you think you're hard off? Try experiencing what any of these people
living in a war zone,
literally fleeing from. So it's, yeah, and that's why it's all part of the same conversation in terms of racism, patriarchy, capitalism, being working class. We're all like oppressed and othered to some extent, some worse than others. So it's like realizing it's part of a wider conversation of driving inequality.
Yeah, them conversations as well that you talk about, like it's when I have these conversations with family and friends that are like, yeah, but when they're coming on the boats and I'm like, oh God, here we go. Do I have to explain this again? But they're like, oh, why is it always the men? And why is it always this? And And that's what the media is pushing. And it's nonsense. Yeah, there is a lot of men that come over on boats, but the reason being is there's so many different layers to that. And they'll send over the healthiest person first because it's such a dangerous journey. So they can get somebody over there that's then can set up a base for them. It might be safer for other routes of access for other family members to come over. But there's so many different things. Like I think one of the conversations I had with my family, they were like, oh, why do they need to come here? And I'm like, think about it. Like, you're a parent, you've got children. The only thing separating us from them is luck, because we were born in a country that we're lucky that isn't in a war at the minute. But they wasn't. That's it. Like they didn't have any choice in where they were born. and their parents, they have children that you can see the starving, the suffering, they're in a war zone, they're getting injured. Would you not do whatever you could possibly do to get them out of that place? And then you arrive at the first place that you can possibly get to, or the second place you possibly get to, the third place you possibly get to, and they're so overrun that the poverty is strife, and the people are not any better off being there. And you're crammed into places because there's not enough to go around, because there's too many people. So then they get moved on, and they get moved on, and they get moved on, and that's not just them deciding to move on. Sometimes that governments and societies and systems moving them along because there's not enough room, and then they go to the nearest place they can. And coming to the UK is probably the last option, where they've tried everything else. It's probably the last option, but they need to do something, because they just keep getting stopped and moved, and or where they do land, it's not safe, it's not clean, it's not somewhere that they're going to be able to actually be able to live or get help. So they keep going. And if you as a parent cannot empathize with these people that are doing that with their children, like you've seen some of the videos that like RNLI is sharing videos of when they're rescuing boats in the channel. Some of them videos are like awful, heartbreaking videos, and there is people on there that are parents, mothers with babies and children in their hands. How can anybody in the UK that's got a family member not empathise with that and think, yeah, if I had a child, or I don't have children, like I'm not sure if I want them, but I can still see that as a person with their child that's doing anything they possibly could to get their child the best life they can. And if that was, I've got family, if that was me in that situation with my brother, my nephew, my parents, I would do anything within my power to get them to where it's safe and accessible. If that ends up being the UK, that's the UK. Do you know what I mean? How can people not empathise? That's the sad reality, is that they've been dehumanised to the point where people don't understand that they are just trying to be safe.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Adele. I really appreciate that you've shared that, because I used to volunteer with people seeking asylum, and I know that is true. And I see so many of these lies about it's all men and things like that, which is basically being fed to people by people who want them to hate them. And it's not actually the truth. And unless you've actually been in that arena and worked with those people, you wouldn't necessarily know that. And people think that they're speaking truth because they've heard it so many times that it's solidified into a belief inside them, even though it's not true. And I think a lot of this comes down to what I consider to be a privilege pyramid, or as you were saying, it's just luck as to where you're born. But I think of it a bit like snakes and ladders, which ties into what Dinah was speaking about with the othering. And it's at the top of the snakes and ladders board is a white, cisgendered, heterosexual, able-bodied man. And every time you take one of those things off, he slides down a snake, and eventually you end up at the bottom. And I think that is how we have to remember that society is currently set up, but what we really want and what we're aiming for is for us all to be treated, which I know you've said quite a lot, Adele. You've said we're all human. We all want to be treated as equals. We all want our basic needs met. We're all human. We're all living our lives. We've all got challenges. Yeah. And I think there's far more that unites us and that we have in common than there is that separates us. But we just have to remember that. And the way that we remember it is coming away from the lies, like what your campaign's doing, removing the lies, coming back to truth, and coming back home to each other.
Exactly. Yeah, and building on community as well. Like we know that there's a lack of community at the minute, and funnily enough, I found more community being involved in activism than I have anywhere else. And because I was last year, I was struggling. I'd come out of a relationship that was bad not long before, a couple of years before. I was still dealing with a lot of that. Had a lot of friends and family, but everybody's busy. Everybody's got their own things to do, and during the week, you get to that point where you're like, oh, I'm just sat here and I don't know what to do with myself because I'm not in a relationship and I've not got friends that I can just call on every single night and things like that. And you don't want to either, do you? And I get it. I completely understand having that lack of community feeling and feeling like you're cut off a little bit and being lonely. Like, I understand it. I can understand where men that are not in relationships are thinking, oh, I can't get a girlfriend and I'm on all the apps and people don't like the nice guy and now I'm stuck in a house by myself and I'm cut off from the world. I get it. Like, I've been there as a woman, but I've been there and it is shit. It's a horrible feeling. But activism actually got me more of community and like-minded people than I think I've ever found in a long time. And now I've got a lot of people that I've become friends through that as well, and that I can turn to, and I don't feel lonely whatsoever because if anything, I'd like to shut my phone off more because it's so busy. But it's really nice because you can pick and choose when you want to see people, but you can also pick and choose when you want to have interaction, and the interaction is not just going to a protest and shouting and screaming at people and banging a drum, which you're not allowed to do anymore, to be fair. Don't do that. It's legal now. Yeah. You're not allowed to bang pots and pans anymore.
That's so bad and funny. It just made me snort on a podcast.
But yeah, it's not just doing that. It is people, like, we're doing an online campaign, so a lot of the time we're coordinating posts and things like that. But then we've also got WhatsApp communities and groups, and we've got people that reach out to us all the time. We made little groups where people can just sit and have a chinwag and be humans and not talk about anything to do with politics or activism whatsoever, but they can just be human. We share cat pictures all the time, memes and daft things, and just ask each other about each other's day, and people that have got you back, and you've got their back as well. And we say this, don't we, like, quite often, like, we go to protests together because we know that if we go together we've got each other's back. But then even then, we know quite a lot of the people there will have our backs as well.
Yeah, it is like a proper beautiful community, isn't it? And yeah, it's because I've been campaigning for a long time, but I've been doing a lot of it on my own or like really isolated because I'm like in a very small town.
It is the middle of nowhere. There's a coast.
And like it's in the middle of nowhere, and it's like people around here are so like just stuck in their ways, and I love them dearly, but like they can be really hard work sometimes. And like it was today where like basically someone had posted something in like a local group, and it was just really awful, vile, racist stuff to the point I don't think I've actually ever seen it that bad. So that was really like eye-opening and sobering today for me as a white woman. I doubt it would be shocking or surprising if I was a black or brown person. But yeah, I was like, holy shit, this is bad. So I was like doing my thing, which I'm much better at it now, but I was doing a bit of comment warring. And like all of a sudden, all of these people that I knew and if like we worked on campaigns before were popping up in the comments, and we were like replying to each other and like liking each other's comments. And I was like, oh my God, like I just felt so like proud to be working with these people and like knowing that we've all got each other's backs on like the deepest level. Like it's like proper ride or die just because we care so much. Like, we wouldn't be doing this if we weren't like passionate, caring people. And it's the most minor inconvenience. I'll just message Adele. Like, oh my God, you'll never guess what's just happened to me today. The world's falling
to that all the time. Our voice notes are a bit ridiculous, aren't they? But it's like literally everything from like campaign stuff to anything and everything. Boy troubles, if that girl troubles, whoever we're dating that week, if we decide to date, we have a hiatus occasionally. But it's literally everything, both ends of the extremes, I suppose. Is that the word to say? But yeah, it's community obviously is great, and like these people that we work with that are like-minded are great as well. And I think there's back to one of the points we said earlier, getting this information, this truth out to people that are maybe on the fence, or they just don't know enough information because they just don't know what to believe. I always think if you see so much of something in the media that's pushing a narrative to blame or discriminate somebody, why would you believe it? Because if they're pushing it that much, that's not truth, that's a distraction technique. But it's perpetuating hate. It's distraction technique, always a distraction technique. And at the minute, it's distracting people from realising that if we actually taxed rich people, we'd be far better off in the world. If we didn't do Brexit, we'd be a lot better off. things like that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Okay. We're starting to come to the end now. So do you want to just tell people if they want to come and join your lovely community and help out, and if they feel now called to activism in some way, where can they find you? How can they get in touch?
So you can find us on Instagram at There's Someone I Knew campaign. You can find us on
at the Someone I Knew, I think it might be underscore campaign.
I think it is.
And then we've got our email as well, which is at someoneiknewcampaign@gmail.com. So
Yeah.
they can contact us
Okay.
either way. The Instagram link tree has got links to everything else on there. So if anyone wants to use X still, we have got an X. We've got a Facebook as well. We've got links in there to the WhatsApp groups. Yeah, different bits and bobs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will put those in the show notes, and then
Yeah,
if anybody wants to, they'll be in the show notes. So I've just got one last question to ask you both. If the world was the ideal world right now, today, what would it be like?
An ideal world for me would be a place where nobody is discriminated against or face injustice or oppression for something that they cannot change about themselves. Like nobody can change who they are, what gender they are, what the sexual orientation is, what race they are, if they're able-bodied or disabled. These are all factors that cannot be changed. Religion, again, is something technically that could be changed, but having faith and having a religion should not be something that people should change. It's their own choice. So a world for me, an ideal world for me, would be somewhere that nobody is oppressed, discriminated against, or faces any injustice because of something like that, and that everybody lives in an equal world, and an equitable world as well.
Get behind that. What about you, Dinah?
Yeah, I agree. I think everybody deserves to live a happy, joyful life. Everybody deserves to have equal access to food, shelter, housing. Nobody deserves power or control over anybody else. And that's pretty much it.
So I want to say thank you so much to both of you. You're just amazing women, honestly. And I love not just what you're doing in the world, but how you're being in the world as well. And I really believe in this campaign, and I wish it so much success. Okay, take care, both of you, and thank you for joining us. And thank you to everybody who's been watching and listening. Okay, bye.